Clara Montgomery's hands trembled as she stared at the necklace. A simple silver pendant on a thin chain. Nothing special to most eyes, but to Clara, it was like seeing a ghost. "Are you okay, Mom?" The young waitress leaned forward, concern etched on her face. Clara couldn't answer. Tears pooled in her eyes, then slipped down her wrinkled cheeks. She hadn't cried in public in over 30 years. She hadn't cried at all in at least 15. Yet here she was, a 78-year-old woman, crying in a small-town diner over a stranger's necklace. "I'm sorry," Clara managed, fumbling for the handkerchief she always kept tucked in her sleeve. "It's just your necklace. Where did you get it?" The waitress, Lily according to her name tag, touched the pendant self-consciously. "It was my grandmother's. She gave it to me before she died." Clara nodded, unable to speak. The diner around her seemed to fade away. The clattering dishes, the sizzling grill, the murmur of conversation, all of it replaced by memories she'd spent decades trying to forget. This wasn't why she'd come here today. All she'd wanted was a change of scenery. The Golden Pines retirement community was lovely, the best money could buy. But sometimes its manicured perfection felt suffocating. So she'd asked her driver to take her somewhere ordinary people went. Somewhere with greasy food and loud conversations. Somewhere real. "Would you like more coffee?" Lily asked, breaking through Clara's thoughts. "Yes, please." Clara straightened in her wheelchair, trying to compose herself. It wouldn't do to fall apart. Not here. Not in front of strangers. She watched Lily move between tables, refilling cups with practiced efficiency. The girl was young, early 20s perhaps, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had a kind smile for everyone, even the grumpy old man in the corner who barked his order without looking up from his newspaper. There was something familiar about her face, something in the shape of her eyes or the curve of her smile that tugged at Clara's memory. "You're new around here," a voice said, pulling Clara from her thoughts. A round-faced woman with graying hair had appeared beside Clara's table, coffee pot in hand. Her name tag read, Betty Owner. "Just passing through," Clara replied, though it wasn't entirely true. She'd lived at Golden Pines for 3 years now, ever since the stairs in her Boston mansion became too much for her knees. "Well, welcome to Betty's, best pie in 3 counties. Betty smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Anything else I can get you besides coffee?" Clara glanced at the menu she hadn't yet opened. "What do you recommend?" "Cherry pie's fresh this morning, and we've got a meatloaf special that'll remind you of your mama's kitchen." Clara doubted that. Her mother's kitchen had been staffed by professional chefs who'd sooner quit than serve something as pedestrian as meatloaf. But she smiled politely. "The pie sounds lovely." As Betty walked away, Clara's eyes found Lily again. The necklace caught the sunlight streaming through the windows, sending a silver flash across the room. That necklace. Clara closed her eyes, and she was 22 again, standing in her father's study. "You can't be serious, Clara." Her father's voice was cold as ice. "Throwing away your future for some fling." "It's not a fling. I love him." "Love." He spat the word like it tasted bad. "What do you know about love at your age? This is infatuation, nothing more." "You don't even know him." "I know his type. No education, no prospects, no family worth mentioning." "And you want to tie yourself to that? After everything we've given you?" Clara's hand went to her throat, to the silver pendant her mother had given her on her 16th birthday. "Not everything is about money, Dad." "Maybe not everything." He looked at her with eyes that could freeze the sun. "But without it, everything is harder. Remember that." Clara opened her eyes. The diner came back into focus, the memory fading like mist in sunlight. She hadn't thought about that day in years, hadn't let herself. A plate appeared in front of her, a slice of cherry pie, the crust golden brown, the filling deep red. "On the house," Betty said with a wink. "First-timers get a free slice." "Thank you, that's very kind." Clara picked up her fork, but her appetite had vanished. She took a small bite anyway, not wanting to seem ungrateful. It was delicious, sweet and tart and buttery all at once. Clara found herself taking another bite, then another. Simple pleasures had become rare in her life of luxury. Across the diner, a bell over the door jingled. A man walked in, mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and a tired face. He scanned the room, then smiled when he spotted Lily. "Dad?" Lily hurried over, giving him a quick hug. "What are you doing here?" "Thought I'd surprise you for lunch." His voice carried across the half-empty diner. "Got off early for once." Clara watched them, feeling a strange pang in her chest. She had no children, no family to speak of. Her husband had died 15 years ago, leaving her alone with more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes. They'd never had children, first by choice, later by circumstance. Lily led her father to a table not far from Clara's. As they passed, the man nodded politely to Clara, a stranger's automatic courtesy. Clara nodded back, then froze as she got a closer look at his face. It couldn't be. It was impossible. But those eyes, dark brown with flecks of gold, she knew those eyes, had dreamed of them for years after. No, it had to be a coincidence. After all, how many years had it been? 55, 56. He would be in his 70s now, not middle-aged. Clara's hands began to shake again. She set down her fork before she could drop it. "Everything okay with your pie?" Betty appeared at her elbow again. "It's wonderful," Clara said, forcing a smile. "I was just... that man who came in. Do you know him?" Betty glanced over. "That's Mike Turner. Works at the factory outside town. Good man, works hard. His wife passed a few years back. Cancer. Left him with Lily and her little brother to raise on his own." "Turner," Clara whispered. Not the name she'd expected, but that meant nothing. People changed names, moved on, started over. "You know him?" Betty asked, curious. "No." Clara shook her head. "He just reminds me of someone I used to know." Betty nodded, understanding. "Happens to me all the time. Getting old is funny that way. Everywhere you look, you see ghosts." Ghosts. Yes, that was it exactly. Clara was seeing ghosts. In Lily's necklace, in her father's eyes. Ghosts of a past she'd buried long ago. "Could I get my check, please?" Clara asked, suddenly needing to escape. "Sure thing, honey." Betty pulled a small notepad from her apron pocket. "Just the coffee. Pie's on the house, remember?" Clara pulled a $20 bill from her purse and handed it to Betty. "Keep the change." "That's way too much for a cup of coffee." Clara smiled. "Consider it a thank you for the pie. It really was delicious." Betty hesitated, then tucked the bill into her pocket. "Well, thank you. Come back any time." As Clara maneuvered her wheelchair toward the door, she couldn't help glancing back at Lily and her father. They were talking, heads bent close together, sharing some private joke. The necklace glinted against Lily's collar. Clara felt a sudden, powerful urge to go to them, to introduce herself, to ask questions she'd been afraid to ask for over half a century. Instead, she pushed herself through the door and into the bright sunshine of the May afternoon. Her driver, Thomas, was waiting exactly where she'd left him, reading a book in the front seat of her luxury sedan. "Did you enjoy your excursion, Mrs. Montgomery?" he asked as he helped her into the car. "Yes," Clara said, though enjoyment wasn't quite the right word for what she'd experienced. Very enlightening. As Thomas drove her back to Golden Pines, Clara stared out the window at the small town passing by. Maple trees lined the main street, their new leaves bright against the blue sky. People walked dogs, pushed strollers, carried groceries. Normal people living normal lives. Clara had never been normal, born to wealth, married to more wealth, widowed into even greater wealth. Money had shaped every aspect of her existence, had built walls between her and the rest of the world. Walls she'd been grateful for, most of the time. But now, looking at the town through her car window, She felt those walls closing in on her, suffocating her. That necklace, those eyes. It couldn't be a coincidence. After all these years, to find them both in the same small town she'd chosen for her retirement. Clara made a decision then, sudden and irrevocable. She would go back to that diner. She would talk to Lily. She would find out the truth, whatever it might be. Because at 78, with more money than she could spend and no one to leave it to, what did she have to lose? "Thomas," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'd like to make a regular appointment. Same time tomorrow, back to Betty's diner." Thomas glanced at her in the rearview mirror, surprise evident in his eyes. "Of course, Mrs. Montgomery. Same time tomorrow." Clara nodded, settling back into the leather seat. For the first time in years, she felt something stir inside her. Something like purpose. Or maybe it was just the cherry pie. Either way, as the car pulled through the ornate gates of Golden Pines, Clara knew one thing for certain. Her quiet, empty days were about to change. And it had all started with a necklace. A simple silver pendant on a thin chain that had somehow bridged 56 years of silence. Clara barely slept that night. She lay in her king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, memories washing over her like waves on a shore. Memories she had locked away for decades. Jack Miller. That had been his name. Not Turner, but Miller. A young man with dark eyes flecked with gold who worked at her father's shipping company one summer. Who made her laugh. Who made her feel like a normal girl, not an heiress. Who gave her a silver pendant. Nothing fancy, just a simple heart on a thin chain. "My heart is simple," he'd said, "but it's yours." Clara's hand moved to her throat, an old habit. The necklace was long gone. She'd thrown it away the day she married Henry Montgomery, heir to a banking fortune, the man her parents had chosen for her. The man who had given her diamonds to replace her silver. The alarm clock on her nightstand showed 5:30 a.m. Too early to get up, but too late to hope for sleep. Clara sighed and pressed the button on her remote that raised the head of her bed. She reached for the photo album in her bedside drawer, one of the few personal items she'd brought to Golden Pines. The first page showed Clara and Henry on their wedding day. Clara in white lace, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Henry handsome and proud, his arm around her waist. They'd had a good marriage in their way. Not passionate, but comfortable, respectful. Henry had never asked why she sometimes seemed distant, and she had never told him about Jack. Clara turned the pages slowly. Vacations in Europe, charity galas, their house in Boston, their summer home in the Hamptons. Photos of a perfect life, carefully curated. What they didn't show were the arguments about children. Henry wanted them. Clara was afraid. Afraid of loving someone that much again. Afraid of the pain it might bring. By the time she changed her mind, it was too late. Secondary infertility, the doctors called it. No cause they could find, just bad luck. Or perhaps, as Clara sometimes thought in her darkest moments, punishment. She closed the album and put it away. No use dwelling on the past. Except, the past had somehow found its way into a small-town diner around the neck of a young waitress. Clara pressed another button and her bed moved back to its flat position. She needed to rest if she was going to return to Betty's diner today. She needed to be sharp, alert, ready for whatever truth she might discover. "The usual, Mrs. Montgomery?" Thomas asked as he helped her into the car at exactly 11:30 a.m. "Yes, please. Betty's diner," Clara confirmed, settling her purse on her lap. She'd dressed carefully today, casual but elegant in tailored navy pants and a cream silk blouse. Her silver hair was styled in its usual neat bob, and she wore pearl earrings that had been her mother's. Thomas drove through the gates of Golden Pines and turned onto the main road. Clara watched the town unfold outside her window. It was such a typical American small town, the kind she'd seen in movies but rarely experienced firsthand. Her life had been spent in big cities and exclusive resorts, moving in circles where everyone had money and pedigree. What would her life have been like if she'd chosen differently? If she'd chosen Jack? The thought sent a shiver through her. No use wondering now. That path had closed 56 years ago. Betty's diner came into view, its red and white sign cheerful in the midday sun. "I'll be about an hour," Clara told Thomas as he helped her into her wheelchair. "Take your time, Mrs. Montgomery. I'll be right here." Clara wheeled herself into the diner, heart pounding harder than it should. The lunch crowd was starting to arrive, a few tables already filled with locals eating sandwiches and soup. "Well, look who's back." Betty greeted her with a warm smile. "Same table as yesterday?" "That would be lovely," Clara said, relieved to see a familiar face. As Betty led her to the same table by the window, Clara scanned the diner for Lily. She wasn't visible among the waitstaff currently serving customers. "Lily doesn't start until noon on Wednesdays," Betty said, as if reading Clara's mind. "She'll be in soon." Clara felt her cheeks warm. Was she that obvious? "The pie was so good yesterday, I thought I'd try lunch today," she said, trying to sound casual. "Well, I recommend the chicken salad sandwich, made fresh this morning." "That sounds perfect. And another slice of that cherry pie for dessert." Betty nodded and headed off to put in the order. Clara sipped water and watched the door, waiting. At 3 minutes past noon, the bell over the door jingled and Lily rushed in, tying her apron as she walked. "Sorry I'm late, Betty. The sitter was running behind," she called, hurrying behind the counter. "Just 3 minutes, honey. World didn't end," Betty replied with a good-natured shake of her head. Clara watched Lily grab an order pad and pencil, noticing the necklace still hanging around her neck. Even from across the room, the pendant seemed to call to her. "Take it slow," she warned herself. "Don't scare the girl." Lily approached Clara's table, recognition lighting her eyes. "You're back. How are you today?" "Much better, thank you," Clara said. "I want to apologize for yesterday. I don't usually get emotional in public." "No need to apologize. We all have our moments." Lily's smile was kind. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Just water is fine for now. Betty's already taken my order." "Great. I'll check on it for you." Clara took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Actually, could I ask you something? About your necklace?" Lily's hand went to the pendant. "Oh, sure. What about it?" "It's very unusual. I used to have one just like it many years ago." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? That's strange. My grandma always said it was one of a kind, a gift from someone special when she was young." Clara's heart seemed to stop, then start again with a painful thud. "Your grandmother. What was her name?" "Rose. Rose Miller." Lily frowned slightly. "Did you know her?" "Miller. Not Turner. Miller." Clara felt dizzy. "I might have. A very long time ago. Was she from Boston originally?" Lily shook her head. "I don't think so. She grew up somewhere in Massachusetts, but I'm not sure where exactly. She didn't talk about her early life much." "I see." Clara tried to keep her voice steady. "And your father, Mike, is it? Is he Rose's son?" "No, my mom was Rose's daughter. Dad's name is Mike Turner." Lily's curiosity was clearly growing. "Why do you ask?" Clara forced a smile. "Just an old woman's curiosity. When you get to my age, connections become important, even small ones." Lily studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I understand. Let me check on your order." As Lily walked away, Clara's mind raced. Rose Miller. It could be a coincidence, of course. Miller wasn't an uncommon name. And yet, the necklace, so like the one Jack had given her. The timing would be right. If Rose had been Jack's sister, or cousin, or... Clara's thoughts were interrupted as Betty placed a plate in front of her, a generous chicken salad sandwich with a side of potato chips. "Looks delicious," Clara said automatically, though her appetite had vanished. "Best in town," Betty assured her. "Need anything else?" "Actually, yes. I was just talking to Lily about her grandmother, Rose Miller. Did you know her?" Betty's expression softened. "Oh, Rose, sure did. Sweet lady. Moved here about 40 years ago with her little girl, Sarah. Opened a small flower shop downtown. Worked hard, raised Sarah on her own. Never married, far as I know. And Sarah is Lily's mother." "That's right. Married Mike Turner right out of high school. They had Lily and her little brother, Tommy. Sarah passed away a few years back. Cancer." Betty shook her head sadly. "Life can be cruel sometimes." Clara nodded, absorbing this information. A flower shop. She remembered Jack once saying he'd like to buy his sister a flower shop someday. "She loves growing things," he'd said. "Not much opportunity for that in our neighborhood." "Where did Rose pass away?" Clara asked. "Oh, she's still with us," Betty said. "Lives at Sunshine Acres now. That's the assisted living place on the edge of town. Her mind isn't what it used to be, but she has good days." Clara nearly dropped her water glass. "She's alive?" "Sure is. Must be in her mid-70s now." Betty gave her a curious look. "Did you know Rose back in the day?" "I'm not sure," Clara said honestly. "The name sounds familiar. I'd like to meet her, if that's possible." "Well, Sunshine Acres has visiting hours every day from 2 to 4. I'm sure they'd let you see her." Betty smiled. "It's nice of you to take an interest. Rose doesn't get many visitors besides Lily and Mike these days." "Thank you for telling me," Clara said, her mind already planning her next move. "I appreciate it." After Betty left, Clara picked at her sandwich, taking small bites without tasting anything. Rose Miller, still alive, living just at the edge of town. Lily came by with a coffee pot. "Can I get you some coffee?" "Yes, please." Clara watched as she poured. The necklace swung forward slightly with Lily's movement. "Your grandmother," Clara said carefully. "Did she ever mention someone named Montgomery? Or perhaps Clara Bishop? That was my maiden name." Lily considered this, her forehead wrinkling slightly. "Not that I remember. But like I said, Grandma Rose didn't talk much about her past. She always said what mattered was the present." A wise philosophy, Clara thought. One she hadn't managed to follow herself. "She does have a box of old photos and letters," Lily continued. "I've never looked through it. Didn't seem right to pry, but maybe there's something in there with those names." Clara's pulse quickened. "Perhaps." "I could ask her about you the next time I visit," Lily offered. "She has good days sometimes when she remembers a lot, though lately they've been getting fewer." "That's very kind of you," Clara said. "But I was thinking I might visit her myself. Betty mentioned Sunshine Acres has visiting hours this afternoon." Lily looked surprised. "That would be nice. Grandma doesn't get many visitors, but—" She hesitated. "But?" Clara prompted. "Well, like I said, her memory isn't great. She might not remember you, even if you did know each other." "I understand. I'd still like to try." Lily smiled. "Okay. Should I tell her you're coming?" Clara considered this. "No, I think I'd prefer to surprise her, if that's all right." "Sure. The nurses know me. I could call and let them know a friend of mine is coming to visit Grandma Rose." "That would be helpful, thank you." Clara felt a rush of gratitude toward this young woman who had no idea how she might be connected to Clara's past. Lily refilled Clara's water glass. "Your sandwich okay?" "Delicious," Clara lied, looking down at the barely touched food. "I'm just a slow eater these days." "Take your time, no rush." Lily moved on to the next table. Clara forced herself to eat a few more bites, her mind racing. Rose Miller, Jack's sister, cousin, friend. And if Rose was connected to Jack, then Lily might be... No, that was impossible. Clara and Jack had never... But still, There was something about Lily's eyes. Something familiar. Clara finished her coffee and left payment on the table, including another generous tip. As she maneuvered her wheelchair toward the door, she called out to Lily. "Thank you for your help. I'll see you tomorrow, perhaps." Lily waved. "Good luck at Sunshine Acres. I hope Grandma Rose is having a good day." Outside, Thomas was waiting with the car. "Ready to head back, Mrs. Montgomery?" "Not yet," Clara said, her voice firm. "There's somewhere else I need to go. Sunshine Acres. It's an assisted living facility at the edge of town." Thomas nodded, helping her into the car. "Yes, Mom. I know where it is." As they drove, Clara stared out the window, her thoughts in turmoil. What would she say to Rose Miller? How would she explain her sudden appearance after all these years? And what if Rose didn't remember her, or worse, what if she did, and the memories weren't pleasant? Sunshine Acres came into view, a sprawling single-story building surrounded by well-kept gardens. Not as luxurious as Golden Pines, but clean and cheerful looking. "Shall I come in with you, Mrs. Montgomery?" Thomas asked as he helped her into her wheelchair. "No, thank you. I may be a while. If you need to leave, I can call a taxi to take me back to Golden Pines." "I'll wait, ma'am. Take all the time you need." Clara nodded gratefully and wheeled herself toward the entrance. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. At the front desk, a young woman in scrubs greeted her. "Welcome to Sunshine Acres. How can I help you?" "I'm here to see Rose Miller. I believe her granddaughter Lily may have called." The nurse checked a computer screen. "Yes, we did get a call from Lily. She said a friend would be stopping by." She looked at Clara with a smile. "Mrs. Miller is in the garden right now. It's one of her better days today. Would you like me to show you the way?" "Yes, please." Clara followed the nurse down a wide hallway decorated with residents' artwork and photos. "Mrs. Miller loves the garden," the nurse said as they walked. "She used to own a flower shop in town, you know." "So I've heard," Clara murmured. They reached a set of glass doors leading to a courtyard garden. Through the glass, Clara could see an elderly woman sitting on a bench amid roses and daisies, her white hair gleaming in the sunlight. "There she is," the nurse said. "Would you like me to introduce you?" "No, thank you," Clara said, her mouth suddenly dry. "I can manage from here." The nurse nodded and opened the door for her. Clara wheeled herself forward slowly, her eyes fixed on the woman on the bench. As she got closer, Clara's breath caught in her throat. Even after all these years, she recognized her. Older, certainly, her face lined with age, but still unmistakably the young woman Clara had met briefly, long ago. Jack's younger sister. The one he'd been saving money to help. Rose looked up as Clara approached, curiosity in her faded blue eyes. "Hello," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Are you new here? I don't think we've met." Clara stopped her wheelchair a few feet from the bench. "Hello, Rose," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Clara Montgomery, but you might remember me as Clara Bishop." Rose's eyes widened, her hand going to her throat, to a chain that wasn't there, the necklace that now belonged to her granddaughter. "Clara?" she whispered, disbelief washing over her face. "Jack's Clara." And in that moment, looking into Rose Miller's shocked eyes, Clara knew with absolute certainty that her life was about to change forever. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. The garden around them buzzed with bees and birdsong, but Clara heard only the pounding of her own heart. "Jack's Clara," Rose said again, her voice stronger now. "I can't believe it. After all these years." Clara's hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "You remember me then?" "Of course I remember you." Rose patted the empty space on the bench beside her wheelchair. "Come closer. My eyes aren't what they used to be." Clara wheeled herself forward until she was right next to the bench. Up close, she could see the years etched on Rose's face, the wrinkles around her eyes and mouth, the age spots on her hands. But her eyes were still bright, still alert. "I only met you once," Clara said, At your apartment in Boston. Jack brought me to Sunday dinner. Rose nodded, a small smile playing around her lips. Mom made pot roast. You wore a blue dress and pearl earrings. You were so fancy. We thought you might be playing some kind of joke on Jack. Clara felt a lump form in her throat. It wasn't a joke. We figured that out when we saw how you looked at him and how he looked at you. Rose's smile faded. But then you disappeared. Jack was heartbroken. Clara looked down at her hands, at the diamond ring she still wore even though Henry had been gone for 15 years. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has choices, Rose said, but there was no judgment in her voice, only a quiet understanding. My father? Clara began. I know, Rose interrupted gently. Jack told us what happened. Your father threatened to fire him, to make sure he never worked again in Boston. Said he'd ruin our whole family if Jack didn't leave you alone. Clara's head snapped up. What? No, that's not what happened. My father told me Jack had taken money to leave, that he'd never really cared for me. Rose's eyes widened. And you believed that? Clara stopped, the weight of the question hitting her like a physical blow. Had she really believed it? Or had she just accepted it because it was easier than fighting? I was young and scared. My father was not a man to cross. Rose nodded slowly. Jack never took a penny. He loved you, Clara. He would have married you with nothing but the clothes on his back. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. All these years, the story she'd told herself, that Jack had been bought off, that he hadn't really loved her, had been a lie her father had crafted to keep her in line. What happened to him? Clara asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. He left Boston. Had to. Your father made good on his threat. No one would hire him. He went west, worked on oil rigs for a while, then settled in Chicago, started his own business. Did pretty well for himself, actually. Clara nodded, absorbing this information. And did he marry? Eventually. Not until his 30s. Nice woman named Margaret. They had 2 boys. Good, Clara said, and meant it. I'm glad he found happiness. He did, in his way. Rose looked at her closely. But he never forgot you. He kept that necklace, the one you returned to him, for years. Gave it to me when I moved here. Said maybe it would bring me better luck in love than it had brought him. Clara's hand went to her throat, an echo of the gesture she'd seen Lily make. I saw it yesterday, around your granddaughter's neck. That's how I found you. Rose smiled. Lily. Yes, I gave it to her for her 16th birthday. Told her it was special, that she should save it for someone who truly deserved her heart. She seems like a wonderful young woman. She is. Reminds me of Sarah, my daughter, at that age. Same kind heart. Same hard worker. Clara hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her mind since yesterday. Rose, is he still alive? A shadow passed over Rose's face. No, he passed 5 years ago. Heart attack. It was quick, the doctor said. He didn't suffer. Clara closed her eyes briefly, feeling a strange mix of grief for a man she hadn't seen in over half a century. I'm sorry. Don't be. He had a good life. His boys turned out well. One's a doctor, the other teaches high school science. They both have kids of their own now. Family. Jack had built a family, something Clara had never managed to do. And you? Rose asked. Your life turned out how you wanted? Clara considered the question. I married well, as my parents wished. Henry Montgomery. He was a good man in his way. We never had children. He died 15 years ago. I'm sorry, Rose said. Don't be. As you said, he had a good life. We both did. Comfortable, at least. But happy. Clara looked out at the garden, at the simple beauty of the flowers blooming in the afternoon sun. I don't know. I'm not sure I know what happiness is supposed to feel like." They sat in silence for a moment, two old women contemplating the choices that had shaped their lives. "Why are you here, Clara?" Rose finally asked. "After all this time?" Clara turned back to her. "Honestly, I'm not sure. When I saw that necklace around Lily's neck, something just broke open inside me. All these memories I'd locked away, questions I'd never asked. I suppose I needed to know the truth." Rose nodded. "The truth. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Sometimes I think we're better off not knowing. And other times? Other times it's the only thing that can set us free." Rose reached out and took Clara's hand in hers. Her skin was paper thin, spotted with age, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "I'm glad you came, Clara. There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, even though I never thought I'd get the chance." Clara felt her heart jump. "What is it?" Rose took a deep breath. "It's about Sarah, my daughter." "Lily's mother?" Clara prompted when Rose fell silent. "Yes, Sarah was born 8 months after you left Boston, 8 months after Jack last saw you." Clara's mind raced, trying to understand what Rose was telling her. "But that would mean Sarah was Jack's daughter, and yours." The world seemed to tilt beneath Clara. "No, that's not possible. Jack and I, we never—" She stopped, a memory flooding back. One night, in the back of Jack's old car, parked by the harbor, the moonlight on the water, the feel of his skin against hers. It had only been once, and they'd been careful. Or so they thought. "I was already pregnant when I left," Clara whispered, disbelief making her voice shake. Rose nodded. "Jack didn't know. Not at first. By the time he figured it out, you were already engaged to Montgomery. He tried to reach you, sent letters, but they all came back unopened." "I never got any letters." Clara's mind was spinning. Her father must have intercepted them, like he controlled everything else in her life. "When Sarah was born, Jack wanted to tell you, but by then you were married. He didn't want to ruin your life, so he helped me raise her instead. Told everyone she was mine, that her father had run off before she was born. No one questioned it." Clara could hardly breathe. A daughter. She'd had a daughter and never known. "Sarah. My daughter's name was Sarah. She was beautiful, Clara. Smart, too. First in our family to go to college, even if it was just community college. She studied botany, loved plants, just like Jack." "And she never knew? About me?" Rose shook her head. "Jack and I agreed it was better that way. What good would it have done her, knowing her mother had given her up? Better she think I was her mother and be loved than know the truth and feel abandoned." Clara flinched at the word abandoned, but couldn't argue with it. That's exactly what she had done, even if unwittingly. "She died?" "Sarah?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 years ago, breast cancer. She fought hard, but in the end—" Rose trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. "It was the hardest thing, watching my girl suffer like that. No parent should outlive their child." Clara felt tears streaming down her own cheeks. Grief for a daughter she'd never known, never held, never loved. "I'm so sorry, Rose. For everything. For not being there. For not knowing." Rose squeezed her hand. "You didn't know. That's not your fault. But if I'd been stronger, if I'd stood up to my father—" "Don't!" Rose cut her off. "Don't do that to yourself. The past is the past. We all did what we thought was best at the time." Clara wiped her eyes with her free hand. "And Lily, and her brother, they're my grandchildren," Rose confirmed. "And they have no idea. They think I'm their grandmother. As far as they know, their mother was my daughter, and their grandfather was some man who left before Sarah was born." "Do they look like him? Like Jack?" Clara asked, remembering the familiar eyes she'd seen in Lily's father yesterday. "Mike?" No, he's not related. He was Sarah's husband. Tommy takes after him. But Lily... Rose smiled softly. Lily has Jack's eyes. And your chin, I think. Your way of tilting your head when you're thinking. Clara thought about the young waitress, trying to see herself in her. It seemed impossible. And yet... What do I do now, Rose? Should I tell them? Rose was quiet for a long moment. That's not for me to decide. They're good kids. They've had a lot of loss in their lives. Finding out their family history isn't what they think. I don't know how they'd take that. I understand, Clara said, though her heart ached at the thought of keeping the truth from them. From her own grandchildren. But, Rose continued, they deserve to know where they come from, and you deserve to know them. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but someday. Clara nodded, overcome with emotion. Thank you, Rose, for telling me, for not hating me. Hate you? Why would I hate you? You gave me my daughter, the greatest joy of my life. But I left her, left Jack, believed the worst about him. You were young. We all were. Rose's eyes grew distant. Life is too short for hatred, Clara. I learned that watching my daughter die. All that matters in the end is love. Love. Such a simple word for such a complicated emotion. Clara had spent most of her life running from it, afraid of its power. And now here it was, finding her anyway, in a garden at an assisted living facility, in the form of an old woman who should have every reason to despise her. Thank you, Clara said again, unable to find better words. They sat together as the afternoon light began to soften. Two women linked by a past neither could change, but both were finally beginning to understand. I should go, Clara finally said, checking her watch. Visiting hours would be ending soon. But I'd like to come back, if that's all right. Tomorrow, maybe. I'd like that, Rose said. We have a lot of catching up to do. As Clara turned her wheelchair to leave, Rose called after her. Clara, about Lily and Tommy. Whatever you decide, whatever you tell them, just remember, they're good kids. They've been through a lot. Be gentle with them. Clara nodded, her throat too tight for words. Be gentle with them. It was such simple advice, yet it held the weight of decades of love and protection. As Thomas drove her back to Golden Pines, Clara watched the small town pass by outside her window, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't just some random place she'd chosen for her retirement. This was where her daughter had lived, where her grandchildren still lived. She had a family. After all these years of emptiness, of wealth without purpose, she had a family. The question now was, what would she do about it? Back in her apartment at Golden Pines, Clara sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Her mind was filled with images of Sarah, a daughter she'd never known, would never know now, a life she'd missed entirely. But Lily and Tommy were still here, her grandchildren, young people with their whole lives ahead of them, people who might need her, if only she could find the courage to tell them the truth. Clara picked up her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. James, it's Clara Montgomery. I need you to do something for me. It's important. James Parker had been her attorney for 30 years, handling everything from her investment portfolio to her will. A will that, until now, had left her considerable fortune to various charities. Of course, Mrs. Montgomery. What can I do for you? I need to make some changes to my will, and I need you to set up a trust. 2 trusts, actually. I see. May I ask what's prompted this? Clara looked out at the darkening sky. Let's just say I've had a change of heart. Very well. I can drive up tomorrow to discuss the details. Thank you, James. And one more thing. I need you to locate some documents for me. Birth certificates, specifically. For a Sarah Miller, born in Boston approximately 56 years ago, and for her children, Lily and Thomas Turner, born here in... Clara realized she didn't even know the name of the town she'd been living in for the past 3 years. In this town. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Montgomery, may I ask what this is about?" Clara closed her eyes, seeing Jack's face as clearly as if it were yesterday. Young, hopeful, full of dreams. Dreams that had never included her in the end. Dreams that had gone on without her. "It's about family, James. My family." After hanging up, Clara wheeled herself to her desk and took out a sheet of her personal stationery. At the top was her name, embossed in elegant script, Clara Bishop Montgomery. She picked up a pen and began to write. "Dear Lily, I hope you won't think it too forward of me to write to you like this, but after meeting your grandmother today, I felt compelled to reach out. Rose is a remarkable woman, and your resemblance to her is striking. She spoke so warmly of you and your brother that I feel I know you already, though we've only just met. I was wondering if you might join me for lunch tomorrow. I've grown quite fond of Betty's chicken salad sandwich and would enjoy the company. With warm regards, Clara Montgomery." She read over the note, wondering if it seemed strange or too formal. But it was a start. A small step toward whatever came next. Clara placed the note in an envelope and sealed it. Tomorrow she would give it to Lily at the diner. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something new. As night fell over the town, Clara felt, for the first time in decades, a sense of purpose. A reason to wake up the next morning. A future that held more than just the slow, lonely march toward death. She had a family. And somehow, some way, she would make things right. Not just for Lily and Tommy, but for Sarah and Jack, whose lives had gone on without her. Whose love she had missed. It was too late to change the past. But the future, that was still hers to shape. Clara arrived at Betty's diner the next day at precisely noon, her envelope for Lily tucked safely in her purse. Thomas helped her into her wheelchair, a curious expression on his face. "Shall I wait, Mrs. Montgomery?" he asked. "Yes, please, but it might be a while today." Clara smoothed her skirt, suddenly nervous. What if Lily thought her note was strange? What if she said no? "Take your time, ma'am." Clara wheeled herself into the diner, the now familiar bell jingling above the door. Betty looked up from behind the counter and smiled. "Well, look who's becoming a regular. Same table?" "Yes, please." As Betty led her to the window table, Clara scanned the diner for Lily. She spotted her taking an order from a young couple in the corner, her pencil poised over her order pad. "Lily's section is full right now," Betty explained, "but I'll tell her you're here." "Thank you, Betty." Clara settled in and ordered a cup of coffee. Her stomach was too knotted for food right now. As she sipped her coffee, she watched Lily move around the diner. Her granddaughter. The word still felt strange, unreal somehow. After about 15 minutes, Lily approached her table, coffee pot in hand. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Montgomery. Would you like a refill?" "Yes, please." Clara waited until Lily had poured the coffee before speaking again. "I visited your grandmother yesterday." Lily's face brightened. "I know. She called me last night. Said you two had a nice talk." "We did." Clara hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out the envelope. "I was hoping you might read this, when you have a moment." Lily looked at the envelope with curiosity. "Sure." She slipped it into her apron pocket. "I'm on break in about 20 minutes. I'll read it then." "Thank you. Can I get you anything to eat? The meatloaf special is really good today." "Maybe later. Just coffee for now." Lily nodded and moved on to her other tables. Clara watched her, trying to see herself in the young woman's features. The shape of her chin, perhaps. The way she tilted her head when listening. Small things that no one would notice unless they were looking. The next 20 minutes felt like hours. Clara sipped her coffee slowly, watching the diner's regular lunch crowd come and go. Finally, she saw Lily hang up her apron and head toward the back door, envelope in hand. Clara took a deep breath. Now she just had to wait. 10 minutes later, the back door opened and Lily emerged. Her expression was puzzled as she scanned the diner, then spotted Clara. She walked over, the open letter in her hand. "You want to have lunch with me?" Lily asked, her tone surprised but not unwelcoming. "Yes, if you'd like to. We could go somewhere else if you prefer, not where you work." Lily smiled. "Actually, I'd love that. There's a nice little sandwich shop down the street. My break is half an hour. Is that enough time?" "It's a start," Clara said, returning her smile. "Shall we go now?" 5 minutes later, they were settled at a small table in the sandwich shop. Lily had ordered a turkey sandwich, while Clara had opted for soup. Her appetite still hadn't returned, but she didn't want to seem rude. "So," Lily said after they'd received their food, "you met my Grandma Rose yesterday?" "Yes, she's a remarkable woman." "She is. She practically raised me and Tommy after Mom died." Lily's face clouded briefly at the mention of her mother. "I'm sorry about your mother," Clara said softly. "Rose told me a little about her. She sounds like she was a wonderful person." "She was." Lily smiled sadly. "The strongest person I've ever known. Even when she was sick, she never complained. Just kept going, taking care of us, working as long as she could." Clara nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Her daughter. Sarah had been her daughter, and she'd never even known her. "Mrs. Montgomery, are you okay?" Lily was looking at her with concern. "Yes, I'm fine." Clara took a sip of water. "Please, call me Clara." "Okay." "Clara." Lily smiled, then tilted her head curiously. "Can I ask you something? Why did you want to have lunch with me? We barely know each other." Clara had prepared for this question, had rehearsed her answer carefully. But now, facing Lily, her granddaughter, the words she'd planned seemed inadequate. "The truth is, meeting your grandmother brought back a lot of memories for me, good memories, of a time in my life that I'd almost forgotten. And talking to you, even briefly, reminded me how much I've missed having people in my life. Real people, not just staff and caregivers." It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie either. Lily nodded. "I understand. It can be lonely getting older. That's why I visit Grandma Rose as much as I can. No one should feel forgotten." "That's very kind of you. Your grandmother is lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one. She taught me everything important. How to be strong, how to work hard, how to care for people." Lily took a bite of her sandwich, then asked, "Do you have family, Clara? Children? Grandchildren?" The question hit Clara like a physical blow, though she'd known it might come up. "No," she said softly. "My husband and I never had children. It's one of my biggest regrets." Lily's expression softened with sympathy. "I'm sorry. That must be hard." "It was. It is." Clara stirred her soup absently. "But life goes on, doesn't it? We make the best of what we have. That's what my mom always said. Play the hand you're dealt, Lily. No use wishing for different cards." Clara smiled. "Your mother sounds wise." "She was?" Lily glanced at her watch. "I should probably head back soon. My break's almost over." "Of course." Clara felt a pang of disappointment. Their time together had been so short. "Perhaps we could do this again sometime. I've enjoyed talking with you." Lily smiled. "I'd like that. I work tomorrow, but I'm off Sunday. Maybe we could have lunch then." "That would be wonderful." As they walked back to the diner, Clara asked, "Your brother, Tommy, is it? Does he live nearby as well?" "Yes, he's a senior in high school. Planning to go to community college next year, study engineering. He's really smart. Gets that from Mom's side." And Jack's, Clara thought. Her father, Tommy's great-grandfather, had been an engineer. "I'd like to meet him someday if that wouldn't be too strange." Lily laughed. "I think he'd like that. Tommy's always had an old soul. Gets along better with older folks than kids his own age." Back at the diner, Clara thanked Lily for joining her for lunch. "See you Sunday," Lily confirmed. "Sunday," Clara agreed, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It was just lunch, just a small step. But it was something. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new experiences for Clara. Sunday lunch with Lily became a regular occurrence. They met at different restaurants around town, talking about everything from books to music to current events. Clara was careful not to pry too much into Lily's personal life, though she absorbed every detail the young woman shared like a sponge soaking up water. She also visited Rose at Sunshine Acres 3 times a week. Their conversations were sometimes difficult, often emotional, but always healing. Rose shared stories about Sarah growing up, about Jack's life after Boston, about the family Clara had missed. "He kept your picture," Rose told her one afternoon as they sat in the garden. "In his wallet, all those years, even after he married Margaret." Clara had wept at that, mourning the life she might have had if she'd been braver, stronger. "Stop that," Rose had said firmly, passing her a tissue. "No use crying over paths not taken. The only way is forward, Clara. Always forward." Rose was right, Clara knew. And so she looked forward, focusing on building a relationship with Lily. A month after their first lunch together, Clara finally met Tommy. Lily brought him to Golden Pines one Sunday afternoon. He was tall and lanky, with the awkward grace of a teenager not yet comfortable in his rapidly growing body. But his eyes, Jack's eyes, were sharp and intelligent. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Montgomery," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "Lily talks about you all the time." "All good things, I hope," Clara said, smiling. "Mostly," he teased, earning a playful swat from his sister. They had tea in Clara's apartment, which felt less formal than the main dining room. Tommy was shy at first, but when Clara mentioned she'd heard he was interested in engineering, his face lit up. He talked animatedly about his college plans, about the scholarship he hoped to get, about the robot he was building for a competition. Clara listened, fascinated by this young man who was her grandson. When he mentioned his concern about college costs, she had to bite her tongue to keep from offering to pay for everything on the spot. "Not yet," she told herself. "Not until they know who I really am." After that first meeting, Tommy began joining Lily and Clara for their Sunday lunches. Sometimes they just talked. Other times they played card games or worked on puzzles together. Clara found herself looking forward to Sundays more than any other day of the week. On a warm day in late June, 2 months after she'd first seen the necklace in Betty's diner, Clara invited Lily and Tommy to join her for a picnic in the park near Golden Pines. Her health aide, Maria, helped her pack a proper basket with sandwiches, fruit, and cookies from the Golden Pines kitchen. They spread a blanket under a large oak tree, Clara sitting in her wheelchair beside it. The day was perfect, sunny but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves overhead. As they ate, Clara watched Lily and Tommy, marveling at how quickly they had become important to her, how easily they had let her into their lives, this strange old woman who had appeared out of nowhere. "I have something I want to tell you both," Clara said finally, setting aside her half-eaten sandwich. Lily and Tommy looked at her expectantly. "I've made some changes to my will recently," Clara began, "and I wanted you to know about them because they concern you." "Us?" Tommy's forehead wrinkled in confusion. "Yes. I've set up trust funds for both of you. For your education, Tommy, and for whatever dreams you might have, Lily." Lily's mouth fell open. "Mrs. Montgomery, Clara. That's incredibly generous, but we can't accept that. We barely know each other." "I know it seems sudden," Clara said, "but I have no family of my own, no one to leave my money to. And in these past 2 months, you've both brought more joy into my life than I've felt in years." "But," Lily began, "please, let me finish." Clara took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been both dreading and longing for. "There's something else you should know. Something about your family. About your mother." Tommy and Lily exchanged worried glances. "What about Mom?" Tommy asked. Clara looked down at her hands, then back up at their faces. These young people who didn't yet know they were her blood. "Many years ago, before either of you were born, I knew a young man in Boston. His name was Jack Miller." Lily's hand went to her necklace. "Grandma Rose's brother? The one who helped raise Mom?" Clara nodded. "Yes, Jack and we cared for each other very much, but my father didn't approve. He was a wealthy, powerful man, and Jack was a working-class boy with no prospects, as my father saw it." "What does this have to do with our Mom?" Tommy asked, his voice tinged with impatience. "Jack and I were forced apart. I believed he had taken money from my father to leave me, and he believed I had chosen wealth over love. Neither was true, but we didn't discover that until much too late." Lily's eyes had widened. "The necklace? That's why you cried when you saw it that day in the diner." "Yes. Jack gave it to me when we were together. I returned it when I thought he had betrayed me. He gave it to Rose years later, and she gave it to you." "But what does all this have to do with our mother?" Tommy persisted. Clara looked directly into his eyes, Jack's eyes. "When Jack and I parted, I didn't know I was carrying his child. I didn't find out until 2 months ago when I spoke with Rose. That child was your mother, Sarah." Silence fell over the picnic blanket. Lily's face had gone pale, while Tommy's was flushed with confusion and the beginnings of anger. "That's not possible," he finally said. "Our Mom was Grandma Rose's daughter." "No, Tommy. Rose raised Sarah as her own, to protect her. To protect me too, in a way. But Sarah was my daughter. Which makes you—" Clara's voice caught. "Which makes you my grandchildren." Lily's hand had gone to her mouth. "That's why you've been spending time with us? Because you think we're your grandchildren?" "I know you are. Rose confirmed it. There are birth records, DNA tests if you want them. But the truth is, I've been spending time with you because I care about you, both of you, not because of biology but because of who you are." Tommy stood up abruptly. "This is crazy. You're lying." "Tommy," Lily said softly, reaching for his hand. "Sit down. Let's hear her out." "No. This is some kind of weird scam. She's just a rich old lady looking for heirs." Tommy's voice cracked. "Our Mom was Grandma Rose's daughter. End of story." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. She'd expected this reaction, had prepared for it, but it still hurt. "I understand why you're upset, Tommy. This is a lot to take in, and I don't expect you to accept me as family. Not right away. Maybe not ever. That's your choice." "Damn right it is," Tommy muttered. "Tommy," Lily scolded gently. "Please sit." She turned to Clara. "Does Grandma Rose know you've told us?" Clara nodded. "I spoke with her yesterday. She said it was time for the truth to come out. She's been carrying this secret for too long." Tommy had sat back down, but his body was tense, his expression guarded. "If this is true, and I'm not saying I believe it, why tell us now? Why not years ago? Or never?" "I didn't know until I saw Lily's necklace. It led me to Rose and she told me the truth. About Jack, about Sarah, about you." Clara's voice softened. "If I had known about Sarah back then, I would have moved heaven and earth to find her, to be her mother. That's my greatest regret, that I missed her entire life." Lily's eyes were filled with tears now. "So our Mom never knew? That you were her mother?" "No. Rose and Jack decided it was better that way. And maybe they were right. I was married to someone else by then. It would have complicated Sarah's life, knowing about me. And our grandfather, Jack, he knew?" Tommy asked, his anger giving way to confusion. "Yes, he knew. He helped raise Sarah as Rose's daughter to protect her, to give her a stable home." The three of them sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of this revelation settling over them like the shadow of the oak tree above. Finally, Lily spoke. I think I need to talk to Grandma Rose to hear her side of this. Of course, Clara said. You should absolutely do that. Me too, Tommy said. I need to hear it from Grandma. Clara nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. She'd hoped for… what? Instant acceptance? Hugs and tears of joy? Life wasn't a movie, she reminded herself. Real emotions were messier, more complicated. Take all the time you need, she said. I'm not going anywhere. Lily began packing up the picnic things, her movements mechanical. Tommy helped her, avoiding Clara's eyes. I'll call you, Lily said as they prepared to leave, after we talk to Grandma. Thank you, Clara said softly. And Lily, Tommy. Whatever you decide, however you feel about all this, the trust funds are yours. No strings attached. You are Sarah's children, and she was my daughter. That makes you my family, even if you don't see me as yours. Tommy looked at her then, his expression unreadable. Why? Why give us anything when you don't even know us? Because it's what Sarah would have wanted, and because it's the right thing to do. After they left, Clara sat alone under the oak tree for a long time, watching families playing in the park. Children running, parents calling after them, grandparents looking on with indulgent smiles. The normal rhythms of family life that she had missed, that she had given up without even knowing it. 3 days passed with no word from Lily or Tommy. Clara visited Rose, who confirmed that her grandchildren had come to see her, that they had asked many questions, that they had been confused and hurt, but also curious. Give them time, Rose advised. This is a lot to take in. On the 4th day, Clara's phone rang while she was having breakfast. It was Lily. Can we come see you? She asked, her voice giving nothing away. Me and Tommy. Around lunchtime. Of course, I'll be here. The morning crawled by. Clara tried to read, tried to work on a crossword puzzle, but couldn't concentrate. At precisely noon, her doorbell rang. Lily stood there, Tommy half a step behind her. Their faces were solemn, but not angry. Come in, Clara said, wheeling back to make room for them. They sat in Clara's living room, the silence stretching between them until Clara couldn't bear it any longer. I understand if you're still upset, she began. But I hope… We're not upset, Lily interrupted. Not anymore. We talked to Grandma Rose. A lot. And we looked at some old photos she had. Photos of our mom as a baby, with a man we now know was Jack, our grandfather. And we found this, Tommy said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. He handed it to Clara. With trembling hands, Clara opened it. Inside was a faded photograph of a young man and woman standing by a harbor. The woman was clearly Clara, 56 years younger. The man was Jack. They were smiling, their hands entwined. Where did you get this? Clara whispered. It was in Grandma Rose's box of memories, Lily said. The one she gave me after Mum died. I never looked through it all until now. There was a letter, too, from Jack to Rose, telling her about you, about how much he loved you. Clara traced Jack's face in the photograph with her fingertip. He was a good man, the best I've ever known. Grandma Rose says our mom had his kindness and your determination. Tommy's voice was softer now, less defensive. I wish I had known her, Clara said, tears filling her eyes. We can tell you about her, Lily offered. We have photos, videos, her old journals. She kept a diary her whole life. Clara looked up, hope blooming in her chest. I would like that, very much. And we'd like to know about you, Tommy said. About our other grandfather, Henry, was it? About your life, where we come from. Yes, Clara said, setting the photograph carefully on the coffee table. I'd like that too. Lily stood and moved to sit beside Clara on the couch. Slowly, carefully, she reached for Clara's hand. This doesn't mean everything is fixed, or that we suddenly see you as our grandmother. That might take time. Or it might not happen at all, Tommy added bluntly. We're still processing all this. I understand, Clara said. And she did. She had no right to expect immediate acceptance, immediate love. That wasn't how families worked, not real ones anyway. But we're willing to try, Lily continued. To get to know you, to see where this goes. That's all I can ask for, Clara said, squeezing Lily's hand. Tommy cleared his throat. About those trust funds. Clara smiled. They're already set up. No matter what happens between us, they're yours. Sarah's children should have the opportunities she never got. Tommy nodded, a small smile finally breaking through his serious expression. Thank you. College is expensive. Speaking of college, Lily said, Tommy got accepted to state for their engineering program. Full scholarship. Pride swelled in Clara's chest. Pride for a grandson she barely knew but already loved. That's wonderful, Tommy. Congratulations. Thanks. He ducked his head, embarrassed by the praise. It's no Ivy League, but it's perfect, Clara interrupted. It's exactly where you should be. They stayed for lunch and then for the afternoon, looking through Clara's photo albums, asking questions about her life, about Jack, about the world they had both come from. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, painful truths, silences that stretched too long. But it was a beginning. As they were leaving, Lily hesitated at the door. Sunday lunch? Our usual time? I'd like that, Clara said. After they left, Clara wheeled herself to the window and looked out at the town she now called home. The town where her daughter had lived and died. The town where her grandchildren were building their own lives. She hadn't chosen this place by accident, she realized now. Something had drawn her here. Some invisible thread of connection she hadn't even been aware of. Call it fate. Call it chance. Call it the universe's strange way of setting things right. Clara closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun on her face. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the emptiness inside her was filling with something new, something that felt like hope, like purpose, like family. It wasn't the life she had planned all those years ago, standing by the harbor with Jack. It wasn't the path she would have chosen if she'd known about Sarah. But it was the life she had now, with all its unexpected twists and turns, its sorrows and its joys. And as Rose had said, the only way was forward. Always forward. Clara opened her eyes, ready at last to embrace whatever came next.